Welcome in, everyone, to another episode of the College Basketball Bracket Science Podcast. I'm Brandon Jadich. I'm your host this week and every other week. This week, we are starting conference previews. This is the first one. We're going to start in alphabetical order for the most part. We're going to go starting with the ACC today. We are officially less than 8 weeks away from college basketball. We're going to talk about all 18 teams in the ACC. Yes, 18 now, so we had some more teams added. We're going to talk about some of the preseason power rankings that we got. First team all ACC preseason, the odds that each team has to win the conference. These just came out, along with providing, of course, some intel on some of the best bets you can place in relation to the ACC. Before we get into that, if you don't mind, please like and subscribe if you have not done so already. Follow us on social media at Bracket Science with 2 S's in science. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Those are where you're going to find the best content. Check out our website, brand new, bracketscience.org. Not 2 S's in science this time, just the word bracket, science.org. Early access to our content. We already released our preview on the ACC there about a day before you'll hear this podcast. Many short blogs on there, important information, good betting advice. Last thing, join our new Discord. We'll be conversating all day on there once the season starts. Nothing on there right now. I'm not going to post anything on there until the season starts. We'll conversate on there. Best bets are going to be posted on there. A little bit of some early access stuff. So go ahead, links in the show notes. Go ahead and join that, along with, of course, smashing the like and subscribe button. All right, let's get right into it. Let's start today with our poll of the day. Who would be your ACC preseason player of the year? Only 2 options. There are 2 people miles ahead of the field. I think Cooper Flagg or RJ Davis. Spectacular freshman Cooper Flagg or returning All-American RJ Davis. You can probably throw Hunter Salas in that conversation if you want, but it is Cooper Flagg and RJ Davis as the heavy front runners right now. All right, let's get into our trivia question of the day.
Trivia time.
All right, so Duke, North Carolina, and Clemson all made the Sweet 16 last year. They were 1, 2, and 3 in the ACC final KenPom rankings based on efficiency. Who was 4th? That's going to be the question. We'll reveal that answer at the end of the show. So stay tuned. We'll reveal that answer at the end of the show. Before we get into Beej's breakdown, I want to talk to you guys about a new partnership that we got. It's with the company SoBet. SoBet is a new betting platform that allows you to see professional bettors' picks. There's no hiding their record. It is for the public to see. All their stats, all their picks, for the public to see. If you get big enough, you can also create a VIP page and start posting picks of your own. The public will be able to see your picks along with see your record and what kind of units you're up. Make it big enough, start a VIP channel for others to join. You can charge them, whatever you want to do. Join today, start your betting adventure. Make sure to click that link in the description to get started. As always, bet responsibly. All right, now let's get into some of Beej's breakdown.
It's time for Beej's breakdown.
All right, so news and notes around the college basketball world. The biggest one came out of Memphis as Penny Hardaway fires 3 coaches and a special assistant just 2 months before the season. There was also a report that came out, an anonymous letter sent out about violations at Memphis. Penny Hardaway went on to have an interview with CBS's John Rothstein. If you haven't seen that, I'm going to link it below. Shout out to John Rothstein. It was just a quick little Q&A. I'm not going to go through all of it, but you guys got to read into this. It was the most pathetic interview I think I've ever seen from a coach. Just straight defense, just coming straight from Penny Hardaway's path, just all about him, how he's just feels like he's running things the way he should. He talks about, hey, I got into the top 10 last year and fell out of the top 25. That's happened to a million other people. Why are people coming at me? Take some responsibility, Penny Hardaway. Things are not going good. This isn't fair to the players. This isn't fair to those 4 coaches. 4 coaches, there's a lot of turnover in college basketball. If you're coaching at a big program at Memphis, an assistant coach, you end up getting let go, you're going to find a job somewhere else 99% of the time. Not when it's only 2 months before. Just kind of shows a sign of just horrible running the program. I mean, The team last year had the talent to do it, and then as soon as Naquan Tomlin came in, it just Hardaway couldn't put together the pieces. He's not the greatest X's and O's coach. For a guy who I will say is heavily on the hot seat right now, not a good look. Not a good look at all for Penny Hardaway. Now I think it's kind of a for sure thing. If he doesn't make March Madness this year, I think he's gone. Memphis should be the heavy favorite, and I mean the heavy favorite, to win the American this year. But with something like this, if you fail, you might be gone, Penny. Not a good look. Final thing in Beej's breakdown, UConn. We talked about them last time with that potential talk of going to the Big 12. It came out that they're not going to the Big 12, just kind of an idea. We kind of figured this, but just thought I'd mention that. All right, now let's get straight into the ACC preview. We have to mention, in the last 3 years, the ACC has sent 4 different schools to the Final Four. Yes, 4 different schools. North Carolina and Duke in 2022, remember. Miami in 2023, and then last year, North Carolina State with their amazing run. Looking forward to this year, it looks like the ACC's top dogs, Duke and North Carolina, and then maybe even throw Miami in there, should be the top dogs yet again. North Carolina had a successful season last year, getting a 1 seed. They returned some heavy pieces. Their sensational backcourt with R.J. Davis and Elliot Cadeau. Duke brings in a phenomenal transfer class and, more importantly, a phenomenal freshman class, along with superstar sensation Cooper Flagg, along with Kaman Maluak, 7'1" freshman. North Carolina State, we got to mention them. They're fresh off their Cinderella Final Four. Will they keep that momentum going? We talked about the ACC has 18 teams this year. Last year they had 15. This year they added Cal, SMU, and Stanford. It is now a coast-to-coast league. All right, now let's get into a breakdown of every single team. This is only going to be about a 30-minute podcast. We're not going to dive in deep. We're going to talk about we're going to go over every team's starting 5. A couple of them we'll talk about quickly, hence Boston College, who we're starting with. We're just going to go in alphabetical order here. Quick breakdown, name their roster, move on. Boston College was better than you think last year. Believe it or not, they were. Now, a lot of this was Quentin Post. Quentin Post is not there anymore. They finished 8-12 in the ACC, 11th out of 15. Not bad. Not bad for a Boston College team with very little resources. It always seems that Coach Earl Grant seems to do a little bit more with less. I mean, no resources, but a decent year for Boston College. Going into this year, their projected starting 5 looks like this. Deion Brown, Josh Beadle, and Donald Hand Jr. as your guards, and then Jaden Hastings and Chad Venning rounding out the starting 5. Once again, look for Boston College, unfortunately, to be towards the bottom of the ACC. Moving on, going down the list alphabetically, let's talk about Cal, one of the new teams into the conference. I know these aren't the most sexy teams that we're starting with Cal and Boston College. Last year, Cal finished 13-19 in the 2023-24 season, coached by Mark Madsen. The team, I will say, did get better. Mark Madsen came over from Utah Valley. This was his first season at Cal. They were respectable. 13-19, no good, but finished 9-11 in the Pac-12, so they weren't the worst team in the Pac-12. They picked up some good pieces, most notably Andrej Stojakovic, but once again, we'll probably see them towards the bottom of the ACC. That being said, though, I do see a little bit of upside potential with this team. The roster looks like this: guards Christian Tucker and Andrej Stojakovic, as already mentioned. At forward, Jeff Nwanko. Rightus Petritus, one of the best names in college basketball. And Matty Sissoko, the transfer from Michigan State. Yes, remember Matty Sissoko? He is now at Cal. So decent team with Stojakovic, Petritus, and Sissoko. Some bigger names there, but still expect them to see him towards the bottom of the ACC. Moving on, let's talk about Clemson. Clemson coming off one of their best seasons in program history, if not the best season in program history. They made the Elite Eight by beating New Mexico in the first round, upset 3-seeded Baylor in the second round, and then bigger upsetted 2-seeded Arizona in the Sweet 16 before getting knocked off by Alabama in the Elite Eight. Great season by Brad Brownell's squad. Clemson does lose P.J. Hall and Joe Girard, but they added Victor Lakin from Cincinnati in the transfer portal to try and replace some of the scoring and some of this just leadership. Chase Hunter is the guy to know for the Tigers this year. He will make the biggest leap. He will be a popular pick for first team all-conference. Expect to see Clemson towards the middle of the ACC, which is just about where they have made a living. Somewhere right on the bubble this year, if you were to ask me. Their projected starting five looks like this. As mentioned, guard Chase Hunter, guard Jaden Zachary, guard Dylan Hunter, forward Ian Shiflin, the chef, is back, and then at the center position, Victor Lakin, as mentioned, the transfer from Cincinnati. Moving on to the Duke Blue Devils. Duke enters its third season under head coach Jon Scheyer. Coming off of an Elite Eight. Yes, Duke made the Elite Eight last year. Remember that? Duke comes into the year with even higher expectations this year because of superstar freshman Cooper Flagg. Flagg has been a sensation as long as he is old. The thing is, he's only 17 years old. He will be supported by key returners Tyrese Proctor, Caleb Foster, along with the loaded transfer class and some other highly ranked freshmen. The question for Duke is whether their youth will overpower their talent. We want their talent to overpower their youth. Will the youth really show? Expect Duke to be at the top of the ACC and definitely battling for a 1 seed. Can they make that run in March Madness with such a young team? We will see. Their starting five looks like this at the guard position. Tyrese Proctor back for another year. Same with Caleb Foster, as mentioned. Guard Sion James, the transfer from Tulane, looking to make a nice impact. And then at the forward position, Cooper Flagg, potential All-American, potential Wooden Award Player of the Year as a freshman. And then at the center, Kaman Maluwak, the 7'1" shot-blocking big man, freshman coming in. We will see about the Duke Blue Devils. Moving on to the Florida State Seminoles. Florida State has missed the NCAA tournament the past 3 seasons. Yes, not living up to expectations after going 9-23 in 2022-23. Remember that? I sure forgot about that. Bad year. They improved last year. They went 17-16 in the 2023-24 campaign. Still, this isn't where they should be. 17-16. That's not up to par for Leonard Hamilton squads. Looking ahead to this season, the roster's down. It is not a good roster whatsoever. They got the good news that Jamir Watkins was going to come back. He tested the draft waters. He was also in the transfer portal. Thought for sure he was going to go somewhere that would, quite frankly, kind of mean something. But he came back, taking a risk, and they got nothing around him. It looks like it's towards the end of Leonard Hamilton's career. Expect to see Florida State at the bottom of the ACC here once again. We'll see how far Jamir Watkins can carry them. Their starting five looks like this. At guard, Daquan Davis. Also at guard, Chandler Jackson. At forward, Boston Holt, along with Jamir Watkins at forward. And then at the center position, Malik Ewan. Not a great starting five outside of Jamir Watkins. We will see if they can kind of improve from internally. Moving on, Georgia Tech. Things that you probably forgot about last year. Georgia Tech beat Duke, North Carolina, Clemson, and Wake Forest. Yes, Georgia Tech did this. This was the first season under Coach Damon Stoudemire. They showed signs of good things to come. They finished at 14-18 for the season. Not great, but they got some of these big victories. They showed some promise, some firepower under Damon Stoudemire. And quite frankly, the Yellow Jackets had a sneaky good offseason. They picked up Javion McCullum, the transfer from Oklahoma, Luke O'Brien, the transfer from Colorado, 2 proven players, and they retained Nathan George, Kawasi Reeves, and Bay Ndongo. It's unlikely that Georgia Tech gets into the tournament. Those expectations they're not fair. That's not fair to put on a second-year coach with a program that doesn't have that much resources. Not the least amount of resources, but not the Dukes, North Carolina States. With that being said, they got some serious potential. They got nice upside. If this team can click, don't be surprised if they upset some of these teams again. They beat the Dukes and North Carolinas at home. It is a highly competitive roster. So we already mentioned all the starting five. Let's just go over it once again. Their projected starting five: guard Javion McCullum, guard Nathan George, forward Kawasi Reeves Jr., forward Luke O'Brien, forward Bay Ndongo. Not a bad team whatsoever. That is a pretty solid starting five. All right, let's move on to Louisville. It is a great time to be a Louisville basketball fan because Kenny Payne is no longer coaching your team. It has been a miserable couple years. We all deserve to show Louisville fans some sympathy. This was just absolutely pathetic. The Cardinals turn over from Kenny Payne to Pat Kelsey coming over from Charleston. Under Pat Kelsey, Charleston absolutely dominated the CAA the past 2 seasons. They won the regular season and the conference tournament both of the last 2 years. Remember, 2 years ago, they were a 12 seed, popular upset pick with 30-win team. They took on San Diego State, popular upset, 12-5. San Diego State ended up beating them and making it all the way to the national championship. Then last year, they were a 13 seed in March Madness, took on Alabama, who also made it all the way to the Final Four. So kind of some unlucky draws there. I tell you what, Charleston was not a talented basketball team last year. I say that full-heartedly. They started off the season 1-3. They had a lot of hype because they had won 30 games the year before. They were just not talented last year. Going into the year, 1-3 to start the season, losing to some really highly questionable teams. And I'm like, yeah, we'll see. And Pat Kelsey did one of the most phenomenal jobs I've seen in the past decade of college basketball, turning this program around and making it back. They ended up being a popular pick to win against Alabama in the first round, in the round of 64. I didn't pick it because I saw just how untalented this team was early in the year. But just for Pat Kelsey to do that and get him to a 13 seed, it was a phenomenal job. I have a lot of faith in Pat Kelsey. His teams always score the ball. He has a great offensive scheme. He proved it last year. The question is, he had to refill this entire roster. He put together a pretty solid team of proven players. Can he just fit all these pieces together and make them work together? I would not be surprised if you see Louisville in the big dance this year. First season, Pat Kelsey, that's how much I trust Pat Kelsey. I think they'll be somewhere around the middle of the ACC, kind of fighting on that bubble for an at-large bid. Their starting 5 looks like this. The guard, Chucky Hepburn, transfer from Wisconsin. Guard, Terrence Edwards Jr., transfer from James Madison. Guard, Javon Hadley, transfer from Colorado. And then at the forward positions, we got Noah Waterman and Kayshawn Pryor. This is going to be an interesting team, kind of one of those teams just up in the air. How good will they be? We will see. Moving on, the Miami Hurricanes. In 2021-22 and 2022-23, Miami went to back-to-back Elite Eights, including a Final Four in 2022-23. They returned many key pieces to that team in 2023-24. The expectations were high. They went on to finish second to last in the ACC last year, only above that Louisville team and the pathetic Kenny Payne-ran team. It was a horrible, horrible, shocking season for Coach Larrañaga and the Hurricanes. But this offseason, Coach Larrañaga just wasn't having that again. Went to work, put together a tournament-looking team. Got some good additions in the transfer portal, some good freshman pickups. Miami will look to be somewhere, I would say, in the top 5 of the ACC going into this year. I think we'll see them back in the NCAA tournament. Larrañaga is just too good of a coach, too good of a program. Their starting 5 looks like this. At guard, Nigel Pack, back for another year. At guard, Jaleel Bethia. This is their star freshman top 10 recruit, Jaleel Bethia. At forward, Matthew Cleveland. And at forward, Brandon Johnson. And then the center in from Virginia Tech, Lynn Kidd. Big 7-foot guy. This is going to be a fun team to watch. We'll see what they do in this upcoming season. Project them towards the top of the ACC. Let's move on to North Carolina. As mentioned, North Carolina was a 1 seed in last year's NCAA tournament. Coach Hubert Davis made a huge leap in his coaching ability last year. He really put together a great season for this Tar Heel squad, which didn't have as high expectations as the year before, where they missed the tournament, obviously, famously. But he really just put together all the pieces in this one mainly because of R.J. Davis, just a terrific year for the All-American. North Carolina won the ACC last year by 2 games over Duke. Tar Heels made the Sweet 16 and then blew that late lead to 4-seeded Alabama. North Carolina does lose Armando Bacot, Harrison Ingram, and Cormac Ryan for this upcoming season, but they got in a star-studded freshman class, most notably Ian Jackson and Drake Powell, and then the addition of sharpshooter Cade Tyson from Belmont. North Carolina seems to be in position for a protected seed again, a top 4 seed in March Madness. The question for North Carolina this upcoming season is in the front court. Jalen Washington, Jalen Withers, and transfer from Vanderbilt, Ven Allen Lubin. They're going to need to make big improvements if North Carolina wants to get back to the Final Four. It seems like it's going to be a bloodbath between Duke and North Carolina atop the ACC standings, which makes the ACC great. Absolutely love it. Their starting five looks like this. At guard, Elliot Cadeau, back for his sophomore campaign. At guard, preseason All-American potential player of the year, RJ Davis. At guard, Ian Jackson. At forward, Cade Tyson. And at forward, Jalen Washington playing the 5. Now from the one North Carolina team to another, let's go to North Carolina State. What can't you say about North Carolina State's season last year? Truly one of the most memorable seasons in recent college basketball history. 9-11 in the ACC. NC State went to win 9 elimination games in a row to make the Final Four. Absolutely incredible. They lose star big man DJ Burns along with DJ Horn and Mohamed Diarra, but a solid transfer class should have them somewhere near the middle of the ACC. We'll see if they can get to the top of the ACC with this crazy momentum they got going right now. The projected starting 5 looks like this. At guard, Michael O'Connell, who made that tremendous shot last year against Virginia, banked in a 3 to get them further in the ACC tournament and all the way to the Final Four. They don't bank in that 3. They don't even make the NCAA tournament, so that was huge. That shot was by Michael O'Connell. Guard, Jaden Taylor. Guard, Dontrez Styles. Forward, Brandon Huntley Hatfield. And forward, Ben Middlebrooks. We'll see about North Carolina State, one of those teams up in the air from last season. Let's move on to Notre Dame. Last year was the first season of the Micah Shrewsbury era for Notre Dame. Had some highs, had some lows. Some very lows. The lowest of lows, a home loss to the Citadel. Can't do that. Can't do that at Notre Dame. Can't lose at home to the Citadel. With that being said, Notre Dame improved throughout the season. Shrewsbury is a good coach. I'm high on Micah Shrewsbury. They beat Clemson. They beat Virginia. They beat Wake Forest, all in ACC play. 3 proven teams, 2 of those tournament teams. Wake Forest, one of the first couple teams out. Year 2 should be much improved for the Irish. I think they kind of continue this momentum going. The solid lineup, passionate coach. I think Notre Dame's going to be in the middle of the ACC standings this year. Last year, they were towards the bottom. This year, I think they're in the middle. Moving into their starting 5, most of this is because of the guard Marcus Burton. He is a potential first-team All-ACC type player. Along with guard Braden Shrewsbury, he's going to make a big jump this year. Guard Matt Alaco, forward J.R. Conenzi, and forward Tay Davis. This is a decent lineup, good coach, decent lineup. I think they'll be towards the middle of the pack. Don't be surprised if this team is above 500. I'm kind of higher on Notre Dame than most people this year. All right, let's move on to the Pittsburgh Panthers. Coach Jeff Capel made big improvements the past 2 seasons for Pitt. In Capel's first year in Pittsburgh, Pitt won 3 conference games. The next 3 seasons, Pitt only won 6 conference games. Moving into the past 2 seasons, Pitt went 14 wins and then 12 wins last season. Things are getting much better for Pitt fans. Jeff Capel is really bringing this program up. Pitt has just kind of made a living on the bubble. Last year, the year before, they were a first 4 team. I think they'll be around the same place again this year, quite frankly. Their projected starting 5 looks like this. Guard Ishmael Leggett. Guard Jalen Lowe, guard Damian Dunn, forward Zach Austin, and forward Cam Corrin. Decent roster, decent team, good coach. I think they'll be right around on the bubble again. Let's move into another new team in the ACC, SMU. There's a new reign at SMU as Andy Enfield takes over the job. Enfield spent his previous term at USC. The great thing about Andy Enfield, he always gets players. He gets a ton of talent on his team. He's done it again this year. The bad thing about Andy Enfield, his teams always kind of underperform. You could kind of see it last year with that team at USC, with that star freshman class and Isaiah Collier, Bronny James. They also had Kobe Johnson. Team just didn't perform. He was at USC for 11 years. He made the tournament 6 times, only advanced past the round of 64 twice. And one was just to the round of 32 in 2017. And then one, he did make the Elite 8 in 2021. Remember, that was the Mobley season. Moving to the ACC, as mentioned, they have a good roster. And they got experience. They got an experienced coach. Don't be surprised if SMU is good this year. I know they're kind of that team who's coming from like a mid-major, moving into the ACC. Don't be surprised if they make a little bit of noise. I could see them. It's not out of this world that they make the NCAA tournament. With this starting 5, it looks like this. Guard Kevin Miller, Watch out for Kevin Miller. He is a sneaky 20-point per game scorer. Guard Chuck Harris, guard Cario Oquendo, forward Matt Cross, and forward Keon Ambrose Hilton. Decent. I would say it's better than decent roster. Solid team. We'll see what Andy Enfield can do with this pretty talented roster. Another new team in the ACC, Stanford Cardinal. Stanford turns over the page to Coach Kyle Smith. Kyle Smith spent his previous years at Columbia, San Francisco, Washington State. Smith moves on to the ACC for the first time in his career. Last year, Washington State made it to the NCAA tournament as a 7 seed, even beat Drake in the first round, made it to the round of 32. Kyle Smith wins wherever he goes, quite frankly. He won at Columbia, he won at San Francisco, he won at Washington State. 3 places that you really shouldn't win, but he did. He won at all 3 places. The roster for Stanford this year is not appealing. It does not look good. With that being said, though, they do have a big man named Maxime Renaud, who is a sneaky pick for not just all-conference, but an all-American. He entered the transfer portal, ended up coming back, even with the new coaching turnover. Stanford has a chance to get back on track. I think this is a foundation year for Kyle Smith. I see them towards the bottom of the ACC. I think this is just kind of where he builds up his system, but he wins wherever he goes, but this roster is just not very ACC level. Their starting 5 looks like this: at guard, Benny Gieler; at guard, Darren Saran; at guard, Oziah Sellers; at forward, Chisholm Akpara; and at center, as mentioned, Maxime Renaud. Let's move on to the Syracuse Orange. Syracuse now enters the second season post-Jim Boeheim. Adrian Autry took over the reins last year and, quite frankly, did really well, kind of surprisingly well. Like, we thought Syracuse would be down, and they were not. Did a very good job. They were a bubble team most of the year last year. They finished the season with 20 wins. Good season. You win 20 wins in your first season at Syracuse in the ACC. Very good season. Looking ahead to the 2024-25 season, they returned some key pieces, most notably J.J. Starling. J.J. Starling will look to be a first-team All-ACC kind of player. Autry seems to be the guy for this job. They are not a zone team anymore. They're man-to-man, different style, good talent. They're always going to get good guys at Syracuse. I think they'll be somewhere around the bubble again this year. Don't be surprised if you see Syracuse as like an 8 seed this year, but also don't be surprised if you see them miss the tournament. It's a good roster, though. It's a good roster, but we'll see. Their projected starting 5 looks like this. At guard, we already mentioned J.J. Starling. At guard, Jaquan Carlos. At forward, Jair Davis. At forward, Chris Bell. And at center, Eddie Lampkin Jr. after previous terms at Kansas State and most recently, Colorado. I'm not very high on this Eddie Lampkin transfer, quite frankly. I think they're lacking just kind of one elite big man, and I think they'd be good. We'll see if Chris Bell can really be that guy. Eddie Lampkin, not my favorite transfer pickup, quite frankly. All right, let's move on to Virginia. The 2023-24 season last year, disappointing for Virginia to say the least. Virginia has been one of the top dogs in the ACC. They did make the NCAA tournament. Just absolutely pathetic performance in the NCAA tournament, though. It was in the play-in game. They got beat by Colorado State 67-42. They scored 17 points. Was it 17 points? It was in the 10 to 20 range in the first half. I can't exactly remember what it was. It was just a horrendous offense for most of the season for Tony Bennett's squad. Virginia has that style of play that is proven successful. They won a national championship in 2019. Since then, Tony Bennett has not won a game in March Madness, though. That is a kind of a big concern. Virginia teams are always best when they have some of that offensive firepower. Remember, they had Kyle Guy, who could really score the ball with that national championship team. And this year, I think they do have some of that offensive firepower. They're not the best offensive team in the country, but I think they'll be top 100 at KenPom, which is kind of all they need in this Tony Bennett system. You know they're going to defend. They're always going to defend. If they can score the ball, they will be top dogs once again in the ACC, somewhere in that top 3-4 range. Last year, they came in third in the ACC. People forget about that. It went North Carolina, Duke, then Virginia. That's just kind of how it always has been. It's either Duke or North Carolina. And then Virginia's right there. They're right there. They're a great program. The Cavs made some good changes in the transfer portal. Most notably some offense, including former 5-star forward TJ Power, along with Day-Day Ames, the point guard from Kansas State. Both Power and Ames can really score the basketball. This is exactly what they needed. They also added a strictly, seems like, Virginia basketball player in Jalen Worley. Terrific defender, 6'7" guard. If Virginia can be better on the offensive side this year, don't be surprised if they are in the top 2 or 3 of the ACC. A lot of people are overlooking Virginia. Now, I had mentioned previously, Virginia is one of my sleeper teams this year. I trust Tony Bennett. I trust his system. I think if he has some offense, his team could be sneaky, really good. Their projected starting 5 looks like this. Guard Day-Day Ames, we mentioned the Kansas State transfer. Guard Isaac McNeely, back for another year. Guard Jalen Worley, as mentioned, coming over from Florida State. Forward TJ Power, as mentioned, coming over from Duke. And then center Blake Buchanan will be in the starting lineup this year. He looks to make a big leap coming back for another year to Virginia. We'll see about Tony Bennett's squad. We'll talk about them here in a little bit. Moving on, sticking in the state of Virginia, let's talk about Virginia Tech. Mike White had a terrific career at Wofford. Since moving to Virginia Tech, it has not gone smoothly whatsoever. In 5 years under Mike White, Virginia Tech has made the NCAA tournament twice and has never made it past the round of 64. Virginia Tech has consistently kind of been around the middle of the ACC, but just hasn't made the next step that the program really needs, that we all kind of thought they would under Mike White. They have an incredibly subpar roster looking forward to this year. Expect the Hokies to miss the tournament once again this year. I think they'll be towards the middle bottom of the ACC once again. This roster does not look great. See if Mike White can finally put the pieces together. Their starting 5 looks like this. At guard, Hygier Miller. At guard, Jaden Shutt. At forward, Ben Burnham. At forward, Tobu Lowell. And at forward, Milajal Potiat. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce his name. Sorry if I butchered that. We'll see. Not a great roster. We'll see how they do going forward this year. Moving on, Wake Forest. Last season, Wake Forest had every opportunity to make the NCAA tournament that they could hope for. They picked up a huge win against Duke to get them on the right side of the bubble for sure. Then they dropped 3 in a row to bottom feeders in the ACC. This was against Notre Dame, Virginia Tech, and Georgia Tech. 3 in a row. You can't lose to those 3 teams in a row. Then they lost to Pitt in the ACC tournament. Wake Forest only made the NIT. Looking forward to 2024-25, they returned potential All-American Hunter Salas, which was a shocking decision for most, and they have a talented roster around him. Will this be the year Steve Forbes gets Wake Forest in the NCAA tournament? I think it's heading that direction. I think this is the year that they do it. Their starting 5 looks like this. Guard Hunter Salas, potential All-American, potential player of the year in the ACC. Outside of Cooper Flagg and RJ Davis, he would definitely be the next guy in line. Guard Parker Fredrickson. Guard Cam Hildreth. Forward Omaha Billu, coming in from Iowa State. And then at center, Efton Reed, looking to be a high-impact player this upcoming season. That's 1 through 18, all the teams that we are going to talk about in the ACC. 18 teams now. A lot. Now let's get in to some of our power rankings. But before we do that, let's first give a quick shout out to Fanatics. Got to talk about Fanatics. Fanatics has been a sponsor since we first started here. They have great deals nonstop. Right now, they're currently offering free shipping on orders over $24. They have their own brand. They have their own clothing line. They also have Nike. They have Adidas. They got all kinds of good stuff. I encourage everyone to go check out Fanatics. Go click the link below. Claim that free shipping on orders over $24. That's not a lot. They got great jerseys, great t-shirts, great hoodies. They even got shorts and pants, whatever you need, memorabilia. They got great stuff. Go check out Fanatics. The link is in the bio. All right, let's get into some of the ACC preseason power rankings and some of their odds.
Power rankings.
All right, coming in at number 1 in my preseason power rankings, it is Duke. It is the Duke Blue Devils. They are plus 200 to win the ACC according to BetMGM. These These odds are going to be based off of BetMGM. I think BetMGM and Caesar Sportsbook are the only ones with preseason odds out right now per conference. FanDuel, DraftKings, Fanatics, none of them have them out yet. So I'm going to go off BetMGM right now. Duke at plus 200, my first team. Second, no surprise, North Carolina. They're plus 425, more than double than the odds of Duke. Plus 425, that seems a little spicy. At 3, I do have Virginia. This will not be a popular pick, but I have them. They are plus 1,200 to win the conference. At 4, I do have Wake Forest, also at plus 1,200. At 5, I do have Miami. Miami is plus 750, so according to the sportsbook, they would be third. I have them fifth, just behind Virginia and Wake Forest. At 6th, I have Pitt, plus 1,800. Wow. They would be towards the bottom, towards the middle bottom of the ACC in terms of odds. Louisville at number 7 at plus 900. NC State at 8, plus 1,500. Clemson at 9, plus 1,600. Syracuse at 10, plus 2,000. Notre Dame at 11, plus 4,500. SMU, Andy Enfield's SMU at 12, plus 2,000. 13, Stanford, plus 6,600. I do have Stanford up at 13 just because of the Kyle Smith effect. This is kind of a bold play. Many people are going to put other schools ahead of them. They'll probably have the more popular play to have Stanford in the bottom 3. I just trust Kyle Smith. I think Kyle Smith, this is more of a Kyle Smith bet than anything. At 14, I have Georgia Tech. I was hesitant to put Georgia Tech this low. I wanted to move them up, but we'll see. They're going to have to prove it to me. They're plus 3,300, so even the sportsbook kind of catching on a little bit. They have better odds than even Notre Dame. At 15, I have Cal plus 6,600. At 16, Florida State plus 5,500. At 17, Virginia Tech plus 3,000. Why are they plus 3,000? That roster is not good, and they have not, quite frankly, done anything special in a long time. At plus 8,000 in the 18th team, dead last, Boston College, unfortunately, for Boston College. So it doesn't look great. It doesn't look great for Boston College. So Duke, North Carolina, Tier 1, no doubt. Tier 2, Virginia, Wake Forest, Miami. Tier 3, Louisville, Pitt, NC State, Clemson, Syracuse, Notre Dame, SMU. Last tier, Stanford, Georgia Tech, Cal, Florida State, Virginia Tech, Boston College, if I had to tier off these teams. All right, now let's get into our ACC All-Conference team.
It's time for the Bracket Science Preseason All-Conference team.
Starting at guard, RJ Davis, no surprise here. The other guard, Hunter Salas. At forward, sensational freshman Cooper Flagg. Also at forward, Florida State's Jameer Watkins. And at the center position, Maxime Reynaud from Stanford. Now let's get into some of Beej's best bets.
It's time for Beej's Best Bets.
All right, so I mentioned that North Carolina, double the odds of Duke. I think it's kind of a coin flip. I see the concerns about North Carolina's front court. I do. But when their odds are double what Duke's is, I think you have to take North Carolina at plus 425. I think this is the best bet. My second best bet for a little riskier play, I know I sound like a broken record, I'm going to keep saying it. Virginia is one of the top dogs in the ACC at plus 1,200. I don't mind it. Now, Virginia only has to play North Carolina at home. Something to think about for sure. And then finally, in terms of the players, I would take Cooper Flagg at plus 1,200 to win the Wooden Award. RJ Davis is plus 800 to win the Wooden Award. Cooper Flagg is plus 1,200. I don't think I see RJ Davis outperforming Mark Sears. And I think if you're going for guards, Mark Sears is the better choice than RJ Davis. Cooper Flagg plays a different style, great defender, can score the ball. At plus 1,200, I think Cooper Flagg is a great bet to win the Wooden Award. That's the show. That's going to do it. Let's get into the trivia question and answer that we talked about at the beginning of the show before we close up here. The reminder, the question was Duke, North Carolina, and Clemson were 1, 2, 3 in the ACC final KenPom rankings. Who was fourth? Think about it for a second. The answer, Wake Forest. They finished 28th at KenPom. 5th was Pitt, and 6th was NC State. Even with their Final Four run, NC State finished 6th in the final KenPom rankings, which is based on efficiency. Kind of a shock. Thought it was going to be NC State just because of that big run, but it ended up being Wake Forest. So the algorithms were in on Wake Forest. They didn't make the tournament, but we'll see. We'll see if this is the year. Thanks for tuning in. Next week is going to be the Big East Preview. Big East Preview. Don't want to miss that out. 2-time defending champs. UConn. Vote on the poll before you leave. Who's your ACC Preseason Player of the Year? RJ Davis, Cooper Flagg. Results will be posted on our next show. If you think it's Hunter Salas, also let us know. Give us a comment. Let us know. Like, subscribe, follow on all our social medias. It's all in the bio. Check out our website. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Have a great week. Take care. See you later.